Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a powerful and enduring personal finance story told through the experiences of Robert Kiyosaki. The book contrasts the mindsets and financial philosophies of two father figures in his life: his biological father, whom he calls his poor dad, and the father of his childhood best friend, whom he calls his rich dad. Though both men were intelligent, hardworking, and influential in their own ways, their ideas about money, work, and success were fundamentally different. These differences shaped Robert's understanding of wealth and guided him toward financial independence. Robert's poor dad was a well-educated man. He had a stable job, a respectable position, and a firm belief in the traditional path: study hard, get good grades, find secure employment, and slowly climb the career ladder. He valued stability, predictability, and social approval. Yet despite his education and dignified work, he struggled financially throughout his life. His money came in and went out just as quickly. He lived within the cycle of earning, spending, and hoping for future security that never arrived. In sharp contrast, Robert's rich dad was a man who never finished 8th grade, yet he became one of the wealthiest individuals in Hawaii. He believed that wealth was not the result of education alone, but of mindset, courage, financial intelligence, and understanding how money truly works. Where poor dad saw risk, rich dad saw opportunity. Where poor dad believed in job security, rich dad believed in creating systems that made money work for you. Growing up between these two perspectives, Robert learned the central message of the book. The rich teach their children different lessons about money than the poor and middle class do. These lessons have nothing to do with school subjects like math or literature, but with understanding cash flow, assets, liabilities, and the psychology of financial freedom. One of Rich Dad's most important teachings is that the poor and middle class work for money, while the rich make money work for them. Most people spend their lives chasing paychecks, promotions, and steady income. They believe that earning more will solve their financial problems, yet their spending rises with their income. Rich Dad explains that this is because people do not understand the difference between assets and liabilities. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. It is a simple definition, yet it completely transforms the way a person sees the world. Most people mistakenly think their home is an asset, though it constantly requires mortgage payments, taxes, repairs, and maintenance. Most people think a higher salary makes them richer, though it only increases taxes and lifestyle expenses. Rich Dad teaches Robert that the key to wealth is acquiring assets, such as investments, rental properties, businesses, intellectual property, things that generate cash flow even when you are not working. Another major idea from Rich Dad is that a job is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. People depend on jobs because they fear uncertainty. They fear losing money, failing, or taking risks. But Rich Dad explains that fear keeps people trapped. True financial freedom comes from developing financial intelligence, understanding taxes, learning to invest, exploring markets, building businesses, and being comfortable with controlled risk. Robert learns that the education system trains people to become employees, not entrepreneurs or investors. Schools teach students how to follow rules, memorize information, and seek approval, but they rarely teach how to manage money, negotiate, take risks, or build wealth. Rich Dad emphasizes that financial education must come from real life, through experience, mistakes, calculated risks, and continuous learning. One of the most memorable lessons in the book is when Rich Dad refuses to give Robert and his friend Mike a higher wage. Instead, he teaches them that the world will always use money to control people who do not understand it. Rich Dad makes them realize that the moment a person complains, demands, or depends on a paycheck, he becomes emotionally attached to money. To succeed, a person must learn to think independently, look for opportunities, and use creativity rather than fear to guide decisions. Another crucial idea Rich Dad teaches is about taxes. Most people believe taxes are unavoidable and simply accept them. But Rich Dad explains that the wealthy use corporations, legal structures, and financial strategies to minimize taxes and protect their income. The poor and middle class work harder and harder, paying more, while the rich build systems that legally reduce their tax burden. Robert also learns the value of selling skills, communication, leadership, and personal growth. Rich Dad tells him that the ability to negotiate, the courage to make decisions, and the habit of continuous self-improvement are more important than formal degrees. Financial intelligence is built not only through knowledge, but through mindset, the willingness to adapt, grow, and make mistakes. Throughout the book, Robert emphasizes that poverty and wealth both begin with thoughts. Some people believe money is evil and therefore never attract it. Some believe wealth is impossible for them and therefore never try. Others fear looking foolish or failing and therefore never act. Rich Dad teaches that fear, laziness, arrogance, and bad habits are the true causes of financial struggle, not lack of income. In the end, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is not simply a book about money. It is a book about responsibility. Rich Dad tells Robert that every person has the power to shape their financial future, but most choose comfort over challenge. Most choose security over freedom. Most choose excuses over education. Wealth is available to anyone who is willing to learn, take action, and step outside the predictable patterns of ordinary financial life. The book concludes with a message that has inspired millions. You do not need a wealthy family to become wealthy. You do not need a high salary to achieve financial independence. You need courage, discipline, financial education, and a commitment to building assets. Money is a tool, one that can either control you or serve you. Those who educate themselves, who build systems, who think creatively and act boldly, eventually achieve the freedom that so many only dream about. Rich Dad, Poor Dad remains one of the most influential financial books in the world because it teaches that the journey to wealth begins not with money, but with mindset. A person who learns to think like the rich will eventually live like the rich, not by luck, but by intelligent design.